Given that Clan Wolf and House Davian are among the most beloved factions, you probably would not enjoy seeing both of them getting mauled to pieces. But if you can endure, or even relish it, these books are for you. Welcome to our review of the Refusal War Trilogy. Technically, it is a double feature, consisting of Michael Stackpole's novels Bred for War and Malicious Intent. But it makes sense to interject Robert Thurston's Am Jade Falcon into the mix. The books take place at the same time and share strong thematic links. In fact, a beloved character dies between chapters in Bred for War, and Am Jade Falcon provides the full story. So combining them into a trilogy is a logical choice. The books mainly cover the Refusal War and its consequences, but they also touch on Operation Guerrero and the events on Holy Terror. The time frame spans 3057 to 3058. Like all of Mr. Stackpole's works, these are essential novels that drive the main plotline forward. If you are following the core story, you simply cannot skip them. Additionally, my assessment of the last essential books was correct. While the previous trilogies were rather self-contained, we now enter a far longer plotline. Natural selection is the starting point for the events that will culminate in the dreadful Fatcom Civil War. Yet this story has a time frame of 12 years in universe, 3055 to 3067. If you are unwilling to be in it for the long haul, I would advise using natural selection as a jump-off point. While you could start with them, you would miss out on a lot of important context. To get the full experience, I strongly recommend reading Natural Selection and Assumption of Risk as well. So, what can we get out of these books? Bred for War includes the Refusal War proper. Ulric Kerensky refuses to abandon the position of IlClan to the Jade Falcons, a process that was started by political intrigues inside the clans. Instead, he decides to take the war to them, the so-called Refusal War. It's a quite interesting plotline because we can finally see the political intrigues that shapes the clans, how they use lawfare and tradition to sideline political rivals, and how they manipulate the proceedings to their own ends. We also get a good look at the Crusader-Warden divide inside the clans. He, Ulric Kerensky, makes sure that the Warden Wolves, his own faction inside his own clan, survive, while he tries to weaken the Crusaders inside his clan and in the other clans. And that's a major motive of his action. The war itself is fought between the Wolves and the Jade Falcons, and ends with a division between Clan Wolf and then Clan Wolf in Exile. And as I said, it also includes the death of a fan-favorite character that has been around since the Third Succession War. It is not described in great detail. We send the character off, and in the next chapter it is no longer with us. So you will have to look for a full story elsewhere. The other big topic of the book is Operation Guerrero. If you recall, Victor Steiner Davian started the very foolish Operation Gemini, replacing a little ill boy with a body double. And this operation will have quite bad consequences for him and the whole Federated Commonwealth. The main focus is fighting inside the innersphere between the Federated Commonwealth, led by Victor Steiner Davian, the Free Worlds League, under Thomas Merrick, and the Compelling Confederation, controlled by the crafty Sun Tzu Liao. There are several interesting point of view characters like Catherine Steiner-Davian, Victor Steiner-Davian, Thomas Merrick, and Sun Tzu Liao. And I have to say, in this episode, Thomas Merrick truly brings his A game when it comes to politics. We see a few military actions inside the then Sarna March, which will be turned into the Chaos March thanks to this conflict. And there is a very interesting side plot about the dancing joker on Zurich. If you have read the preceding books, you will soon know who this guy actually is. Altogether, it is a very good book with tons of intrigue that is very low on Mary Sue's. Most characters behave well thoughtful and good, but they're inside the limits of what you would call believable. There's no one who can do magic or stand out. There's only one single character that comes close to Mary Sue territory, but this one is so interesting, ruthless, and deliciously evil that he just has to get a pass. But now let's go to the second book, Am Jade Falcon. This book is a coda and closure of a Legend of a Jade Falcon trilogy. You remember the 3 books about Aidan Pryde and his misadventures that ended in Tukayit. And we will revisit some of the characters that we met already there. The book itself is almost exclusively the story of Joanna. You remember her as the old Falconer of Aidan Pryde. After shamed on Thwycross and becoming a member of Falcon Guards, she is still sticking with this unit. And basically from there the story will take us into 3 distinct chapters. A side note, there's also a little cameo by a character we know from the BattleTech cartoon. Cadets, do not use enhanced imaging, because it will fry your brain. The book starts with the Falcon Guards getting a new commander. Revel Pryde, who holds the blood name of Aidan Pryde, is chosen to become the new commander of the Falcon Guards. And he is part of a complete new generation of clan warriors, and Joanna does not like that. To be fair, he doesn't like Joanna either, so she rushes right into problems with this new brand of clan warrior. The first part describes the problems, the intrigues, and the day-to-day activities, and ends with a duel that doesn't end very glorious for her. The second arc is Joanna as a spy. The Jade Falcons fear that the wolves are compromising their operations, and she is sent out to pick a certain installation. The part is quite interesting and also important because it's the first time we see the society in action, although this name is not used yet. Also, we will be pointed out that there is a certain breeding program that has some relevance for the next book in the trilogy. The last and final chapter of this book is the showdown on Thwycross. Thwycross the Accursed, place where the Falcon Guards were humiliated. And Joanna is sent back, and she has a unique chance to redeem her form of shame. And she proceeds to do that. Although I will not tell you how exactly it happens, because that's the main part of this book. Altogether, Am Jade Falcon is a great way to tie the legend of a Jade Phoenix into the essential novels. And it is able to deliver some context for us that is helpful to understand the other books. Which brings us to the third installment, Malicious Intent. This book is not as good as the other both, basically because Stackpole is a better cloak and dagger writer than a military writer, in my opinion, and he falls back into his love affair with the word slander. But altogether, it is not a bad book at all, and I would also recommend it. It starts with Vlad of the House of Ward, who has just survived an ambush by the Jade Falcons, and we basically know him since the Warrior Trilogy as a complete asshole. But now it is he who has to revive the Crusader part of the Wolves and pay back the Jade Falcons for their treacheries. And he will do this in just a few short weeks. Basically, the first part of the book covers the complete wolf adjuration, the Jade Wolves events, and the rebirth of the Crusader Wolves beside the Wolves in Exile. It's quite interesting, and again, we can see how, rotten the clans actually are. They like to give this great warrior facade of unbeatable super soldiers, but if we dig a bit deeper, we see a bunch of crooked politicians pulling the wool over each other's eyes. And that's actually quite good to see, and also preparation for the things to come. In the second episode, we deal with the outcome of the events of the Refusal War, and Catherine Steiner-Davian goes crazy. I will not say what her initial plan is, because that was a situation where I had to laugh out loud, simply because it was truly hilarious. But at the end it turns out good for her, because she finally finds a boyfriend. And her longing towards this boyfriend is described in far too many details. Oh well, at least it's fun. The other main plotline of this book is the Jade Falcon incursion into the Lion Alliance, and how Victor Steiner-Davian has to rally his friends and allies to defeat them. It's more towards the military side of things, but quite okay. It should also be pointed out that this book handles Operation Odysseus, which is in line with a 3058 timeframe. The Word of Blake finally makes its moves to liberate the cradle of mankind. I have to mention that the Word of Blake sadly gets no point of view characters. The complete affair is strictly handled from the Comstar side of things, and the only Word of Blake character that we actually see as a interacting person is an assistant to Thomas Merrick that made his appearance in Bred for War. But nonetheless, this action is, of course, a very pivotal event for the innersphere, and it is handled in this book. The great climax of it all is then the showdown between the Jade Falcons and the innersphere on Coventry. And we will also learn how the Whitting Conference got its name. So, should you read these books? I already told you, they are part of the essential main storyline. If you decided to follow the storyline, there is no way past them. Which is not a dramatic thing, because they are all three very entertainment and well-written books, and I got quite some joy out of them. If you do not care for the essential timeline or meta plot at all, things could be a bit iffy, because there's a lot of context that was built in the preceding novels. And I don't know how well you could read yourself into them, although it's actually quite possible. They're not without access points for people who want to jump in. The main point to pick them, if you're not Essential Reader, is because you want to get into the clans, into the intrigues, and especially the Jade Falcons. It's also quite important to note that several events that shaped the inner sphere and the clans later have their first mention here. the Society, the Chaos March, the Liberation of Terra, and so on. So I would rank these books quite important in the overall canon. So far my review. I hope I was helpful for you, and thanks for listening.